Good morning, students. In this lesson, we'll be continuing talking about the pine forest, but the threats caused against the pine forest. Now, first of all, we have a picture on the wall. What do you get out of it? What do you see, Evelyn? Fire. Okay. Rosalie, what can you tell me what's a fire?
A fire is mostly caused by heat.
Fires is mostly caused by heat. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Edwin.
Needs fuel and oxygen for it to continue burning.
Okay. We go to Yemi. What you think? What a fire? What comes to your mind when you hear the word fire or look at the picture? See fire.
It's very hot.
It is very hot. Okay. Yes, Kyle.
Destruction.
Destruction. Okay. So all of these things comes concerning fire. Now we'll continue on and we'll see fire concerning the forests. Okay, the pine forest that we just talked about in the previous lesson. What is a fire? First of all, a fire is one of the natural disturbances in the forest. So in other words, it is natural, but it also can be caused by humans or human activity. Periodic fires caused by lightning have shaped and altered pine forests for millions of years. So fire has been shaping the pine forest, especially in Belize, for the past million years, and it still continues. Like how Mrs. Roches mentioned, just last year we had again a forest fire that burnt majority of the trees in the mountain pine ridge. Fire kills trees directly, and the smoke it creates also contributes to the air pollution. What goes up when we start to burn trees? Smoke. The smoke is known as? Thank you, carbon dioxide. Now, small natural fires actually benefit certain forests and are necessary to the long-term survival of dry temperature coniferous forests. So some of the small fires, as we go on, you will notice that it benefits the forest and it is needed. Fires are often set intentionally in a process called slash and burn agriculture. Can anybody want to describe what slash and burn is? Yes, Erwin.
It's a process that the Maya used to use, and I think they still use it now, but rarely, where as you burn the old crops and then the ashes that stay there would be like a fertilizer for the other plants which you will plant after.
Okay. Present day. Do we still use slash and burn in present day? Yes. You said yes, Leticia. Let's see how. Where have you seen it?
Back by my area, they usually do it because they do farming.
Okay. So farmers need to clear the land. We have trees and the bushes around, so they need to clear the land, and some of them burn the trees, and then after it is cleared, then they use it as agricultural land. Though this may fertilize the soil, as Erwin said, the soil for a while, it opens up a whole new set of problems, and carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere, contributing to the greenhouse effect. Now, here we have two pictures at night. It looks pretty, doesn't it? If it's at night, it really does pretty, but it is doing a huge damage. Now, when it is burning, it looks pretty, but after the effect, how does it look? Horrible. Okay. Now, there are three types of forest fires. The first one we're looking at is surface fires. And Glendy, can you please read the first point for me?
The most common type of wildfire are surface fires, which move slowly and burn along the forest floor, killing and damaging vegetation.
Thank you. So this is the most common type. When we drive down from Belmopan going down to Belize City, sometimes right on the roadside you see some of the forest or some of the trees burning close to the road. So in other words, this type is known as surface fires, and they burn slowly and along the forest floors. No, it continues and says it moves along a height up to 1.3 meters. So it doesn't grow tall. The fire is not high. Okay, it's just up to 1.3 meters. Second one, ground fires. You hear me?
These are usually started by lightning, ground fire burn, or on or below the forest floor through the root system.
Thank you. Ground fires. These are usually started by lightning. So it says ground fires burn on or below. So sometimes the fire is underneath the ground and is still burning. One type of food that people cook underneath the ground is what?
Some people, they, I don't know what type of food or it is, but I think it's more like baking. They put hot rocks. They dig a hole and put hot rocks, and they put the fish covered in some leaves, or I don't know, and they leave it there. They cover it back with sand, and after a while they dig out back the sand, and they take out the fish in the leaves, and they open up the leaves, and the meat is cooked.
Okay. Another one that I know is known as pibil. Okay, so that's the same process when you dig a hole and then you put hot rocks and the fire underneath. You put the meat and then you cover it up. So in other words, it is still burning underneath the ground. It also creeps through the dust, and fires may smother below the surface for a long period of time. For example, the three pictures, if you notice, there's a little bit, the three of them in the middle one. The middle one is the one that is burning through the forest. And then the third one to the end, you notice that it is just burning on the surface itself, just burning the dead leaves that are on the forest floor. The third one are known as crown fires. What part of the tree is known as the crown? Yes, Anna?
The top part?
The top part. Very good. The top part of the trees are known as the crown of part of the tree. Now, crown fires. Let me see. Stephen, please read the first one for me.
These fires spread by wind, moving quickly along the top of trees.
Oh, thank you. These fires spread by wind, moving quickly along the top of the trees. So this one is up high. It occurs higher in the trees, in the upper branches known as the crown of a tree, and can be several different varieties. These include dependent crown fires, which use convection to preheat the crown, and most dangerous of all, independent crown fires, which leap from tree to tree. Now, once the crown tree starts to have the fire burning, then the wind comes, and depending on which direction it blows, and then the fire spreads from tree to tree. Okay, this year we had an incident where we had slash and burn, where a farmer was slash and burning an area, and then the breeze or the wind came and it blew and it burnt down majority of a sawmill. Okay, and all the wood that was there, especially the pine, as Mr. Roach has mentioned, it easily catches fire and it burns. So that sawmill lost a lot of its assets. The three stages of crown fire. If you look at the first one, is the most passive, which is the torching one. It is basically only one tree where the fire starts in the pine forest. Once that tree starts the fire, then eventually the wind comes, or the sparks fly from tree to tree, and it goes to the second stage, which is the active or dependent. Now that fire has all the fuels necessary to continue on, especially with the wind. Now the wind is blowing towards the other trees, which eventually will start to catch fire. Finally, you have the independent one, which is the very rare. If you notice, one of them has already burnt down, and the tree has spread to the other trees, again caused by the wind. And this changes direction. As the wind changes, if the wind is blowing north, the fire goes towards the north. If it changes to the south, the fire actually continues down the south. So it depends on how the wind is blowing. Now, we have different sources. The first says fire is caused by lightning. Lightning is a source of pine forests. Although this is not the bolt that caused the fire, this storm produced numerous strikes. The fire was created by a previous bolt, and coincidentally, as the image was obtained, another bolt probably miles away aligned with the fire. So the fire started here. The lightning start the bolt. You notice that sometimes when the lightning strikes, it sometimes strikes trees in half, and some elders go to dig and they have the lightning stone. That is what causes, or one of the source that causes forest fire. Now, in this picture you have the lightning, but the lightning not necessarily is the one that started the forest fire. It is after. Another source, as we talked about, was slash and burn, agriculture. Migrant slash and burn occurs when cultivators burn forests to grow subsistence for crops. The tree ash fertilizes the soil for only a few years. Okay, it does fertilize the land, but only for a few years. If you notice, you have some there. And on the last picture to the end, you notice how our pine forest has been cleared for farming. In the previous poem, it says that it was abundance, limitless. Now, because we were able to see trees after trees after trees, but after we start to cut and cut and cut, and we don't replant, we are losing all of them. Consequence of various types of fire. First one, loss of property. I gave an example of the sawmill. That business lost property. We also are able to lose property if we have our farms and then the pine forest the forest fires comes and burn our crops, or the farmers' crops. We lose our property. People or humans also have their house close to forests, some of them. And again, forest fires, when it comes close to it, it can burn the house. So again, it burns your property. For example, in the States right now, presently, what is happening? Yes, Erwin.
Well, usually when I look at CNN, they commonly talk about wildfires during the summer, and then most neighborhoods and houses have to be evacuated, and many people lose their houses.
Okay.
And with all the fire department try to do their best, but it's still not enough.
Yes, thank you very much. Presently, they have a forest fire burning through towns or communities, and people, like you said, need to be evacuated, and firefighters going there to fight against the fire. Sometimes they use aerial. Sometimes you see a little plane flying and like purple or different color of sun or smoke coming down. They are fighting the forest fire. The other consequence is about mature trees being charred. They are not dead, but they are burnt, just like humans. If we get, sometimes when we are cooking, we might get burnt. It's the same with the trees. They are still living. Loss of livelihood. Loss of livelihood. What do you understand when I say loss of livelihood, Kyle?
It means that a lot of organism will die and stuff like that.
Okay. Rollies?
Livelihood is men talking about living things that would be destroyed by the fire.
Okay. Irma, we're getting there.
Livelihood means plants and animals.
Okay, yes, but yes, Edwin.
When the forests are burnt down, it is practically inhabitable for other animals, so they can't live there again until the forest has grown back, so animals can't live there again, and they have to go to any other forest or home that they can survive in.
Okay. Livelihood also includes if you have your farm and it burns down. That's the farmer's livelihood. That's where he gets his money from to maintain or pay bills or whatever. That is his livelihood. That is his job. So forest fires can destroy people's livelihood, people's jobs. Young plants get totally destroyed. So they die automatically. So now this process has to start all over again. Animals having to find new homes, like you just said. Food source burnout. Soil microorganisms are killed. Fungi on trees, roots are also killed. Physical and biological changes. First thing, carbon dioxide is released due to the huge fires. Do we want a lot of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere? No, for the past weeks we're learning that we don't want carbon dioxide released in our atmosphere. Land cleared for agriculture and pasture. Soil microorganisms killed due to intense fires. Nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, and potassium can be vaporized. Trees take longer than organisms to recover. Animals need to find new territory. So their habitat is being destroyed, so then they need to move and go deeper or find somewhere else to live. Some animals from the surrounding forests come to feed on new seedlings and young plants growing in recently burnt area. So again, the trees are dying, being burnt because of the fire. Now the seedlings or the small little trees are just growing up. Then animals come and eat the trees or feed on the trees. So that means no trees are able to replace the ones that were burnt. And why do we need trees? What is so important of those pine trees? We just mentioned in last lesson. Yes, Stephen?
Provide oxygen.
It provides the oxygen. It produces the oxygen that we humans and animals and living things need. Now, I'd like you to turn to your activity book at page 37. Now, Ms. Roches mentioned about our pine trees and where our pine forest is located. Now, I want you to draw, or I want you to make a symbol. You come up with your symbol, and I want you to place where the pine forest is located, or where a majority of the pine trees are located. What district? I'll give you a minute. Where are the pine tree forests located? Where can we find those trees? Now, the other step I want you to do is, now you have identified where pine trees are located in the country of Belize using the map of Belize. Now I want you to try to guess or try to mark on that map where majority of the forest fires have occurred. Where do you think those forest fires have occurred? I'll give you another minute. Okay. Yadira, do you want to share?
Most of the pine forests are located in Kaya district.
Okay, most of the pine forests are located in the Cayo district. Anna, did you put pine forests somewhere else?
No.
No, so yes? Erwin?
I placed some a little in the Belize district along the highway.
Okay, very good. Who else? Anybody else place some pine forests How about the north? Nobody put pine forest on the north? Who has gone to Orange Walk? Okay, traveling down the bus. Have you seen some pine trees going down? Okay, who? Okay, how about down south? Have you seen pine trees going down south? Okay, so pine trees are located all over Belize. Now, let's compare your answer with the picture on the screen. Now, if you notice, I asked you where pine forests are located. If you notice, from north way to the top of the Belize map, we found pine forests way down to the close to the actual border down south, east and west. Throughout the country of Belize, pine forests or pine trees are being located. Now, if you notice our neighboring countries, we have Mexico and we also have Guatemala having pine trees. Now, the second step I asked was for you to show me or to mark on the map where forest fires or pine forest fires have occurred. Where the dots are where fires have occurred in Belize. Is it a lot? Where do you see the most though?
Guatemala and Mexico.
Okay, Guatemala and Mexico. So just here we have a lot of dots more than the country of Belize. And if you notice, close to our border, we have some fires occurring. Okay, so one of the threats to our pine forests is forest fires. 3 types. Let's review a little. Yes, Irma.
Crown fire.
Crown fire. Can you give me a sentence describing crown fires?
It moves quickly.
What causes it to move quickly, Irma?
The wind.
The wind. And where does it occur? Where does crown fires occur?
In the top of the pine trees.
In the top of the pine trees. Very good. Second one. Yes, Daisy.
You have the ground fires that occurs flat surface. Surface on the floor, and it only burns the dry leaves that are on the ground.
Okay. Something else about ground fires that Daisy didn't mention that is also important. Yadira?
They move slowly.
They move slowly. Where else does it burn, Kyle?
Underneath the surface.
Underneath the surface. Very good. Then we have the third and last type, which is
Surface fire.
surface fires. And what can you tell me about surface fires? 1 sentence or 2 sentences.
It burns on the surface.
It burns on the surface, and it is also, yes, Kyle?
It only burns, the highest it goes is 1.3 meters high.
Okay, it only burns to 1.3 meters. Okay. And it is the most common one. Okay, it is the most common one of the tree. That is one threat to our pine forest. Now, our second activity will be that you have 3 containers in front of you. Okay, which one of those? Can you please point to the one where water is found? Okay, so, very good. So I want you to find where the water is in the form of liquid. Okay, now this is what I want you to do. I want you to dip your fingers and touch it. Yes, the water. Okay, Rosalina, how does the water feel? Wet. What else can you tell me about water? What else can you tell me about that feeling that when you just touch, you hear me? The water itself.
The water feels cold.
It feels cold. Glendy, how does it look?
Clean.
Cleaned. Okay, it looks clean. Very good. Hold that thought. The water looks clean. Later on in the lesson, we'll come back to that. Okay, so the water looks clean, so that means it is transparent. You can see through it. Okay. One characteristic, going back to science, one characteristic of liquid. What makes something a liquid? Yes.
It takes up the space of its container.
All right, it takes the shape of its container. Very good. Now, so we have two things to remember. It takes the shape of its container, and it is transparent, and it is clean. Now we move on to the second one, where the ice is. I want you to touch the ice. Feel the ice. You should have more than one cube. Okay. Evelyn, what did you feel?
It's cold and it's slippery.
It is cold and it is slippery. Okay. How does it look? Yes, Kyle?
It feels hard.
It is hard. When I asked the first question, which one is water, you guys pointed to two of those traits. Right? Am I right? Is that what you meant? Good. So, what form of water is that? Or what type of matter? What's the solid? Solid. So, how can we change the liquid to the solid? Yes, Erwin.
Process of freezing.
Freezing. The temperature needs to change to a cooler temperature. Right? Very good. Now, I want you to take the third container. You should have napkins. Is water present? Yes, no? Yadira, is water present? Yes? Oh, no. Okay. I want you to take one of the napkins and dip it or place it inside the one that is wet, and and after it is fully wet, you put it back to the original container. So take it, dip it in the water, and you place it back to the container. One or two. If you have two, you can do two. Irma, what happens to the napkin?
It soaks up into water.
It soaks up the water. Can you tell me if water is present in the third dish now? Or in the third container?
Yes.
Yes. Evelyn, what will occur if I take that napkin and I place it underneath the sun outside? It will dry. Now, what happens when it dries? Where the water will go? It evaporates. Okay, we mentioned that water, when we freeze water, it turns into a solid. So it goes from a liquid to a solid. And when we leave it, when we use the damp napkin and we place it outside, it evaporates. That means the water then turns to steam or a gas that goes up into the air. So two types of temperatures affect the state of matter of liquid is the freezing cold and hot or warm. I have four pictures on the screen, and those concern the water cycle. We have already talked about or learned about the water cycle. Looking at the first picture, what part of the water cycle is it showing or demonstrating? Yes, Kyle?
Evaporation.
Evaporation. What can you tell me about evaporation?
It is when the water is heated by the sun and then it evaporates by steam up into the air.
Okay, thank you very much. So evaporation is when the sun heats up the water in rivers or lakes or any other source, and it turns itself into vapor or steam, and it goes up. For example, here you notice that we can say it is a lake. The sun heats the water, and the water in turn turns into a gas or a vapor, steam, and then it will start to go up. The second picture there we have of clouds. What section or what part of the water cycle does that demonstrate? Yes, Edwin.
Condensation.
Very good. What can you tell me about condensation?
Condensation is when the water vapor rises up to the air and meets with the cold air. When it cools down, it turns into water droplets and gather up to form clouds.
Okay, very good. So condensation is water vapor in the air that gets cold. Remember we talked previously, we talked about cold and heat. Heat, it turns into vapors, it goes up. When we go up into the sky or up into the atmosphere starts to get cold, or the temperature drops. So that means it turns the steam or the vapor into water droplets, forming clouds. So we move on to the other one, the third picture to the far end. What does part of water cycle does it occur? Yes, Anna.
Precipitation.
Okay.
When it rains.
Okay. It occurs, as you said, when it rains or water then condenses and the cloud cannot hold anymore, so then the rain falls. Does it necessarily drop only as rain? Yes, Evelyn? No? In what other forms can it fall back to earth?
Hail, snow.
Hail or snow. Very good. The fourth one is what stage? Yes, Glendy.
Transpiration.
Transpiration. What can you tell me about transpiration?
Is when the water inside the plant evaporates.
When the water from inside the plant evaporates. Now, if you look at the diagram, at the bottom section, the water is absorbed by the roots and it goes up. Water travels through the plant, eventually reaching the leaves, and from the leaves it then evaporates up. Infiltration. Infiltration is the process by which water enters the soil from the ground surface. In previous lesson, we had an experiment, or we showed a lab when you sprayed the water. We also did a short experiment with how the filtration of water when we use clay, loam, and sand. When we noticed, that's when we mentioned that Kyle had magic clay, when the water stayed up, and when the others clay just filtrated through. Rainfall rate deals with the depth and time. When the rainfall rate is greater than the infiltration capacity, the difference is the runoff. Infiltration capacity, the depth and time, tells us how much of the rain can be absorbed by the ground without running off. So the different types of soil affects infiltration. Clay, for example, will not absorb the water as the black soil, as we call it. It will cause a runoff, while the black soil will now infiltrate or have absorbed the water in. So the only difference is with infiltration capacity is that sometimes we notice that we have puddles of water. What causes puddles of water is that it rains at a steady, constant pace, that the water will not be able to be absorbed as fast as it rains, meaning that then we have what we call the puddles. Okay? Collection. Collection is when water falls back as precipitation. It may fall back in the oceans, lakes, or rivers, or it may end up on land itself. Now, erosion. Erosion is another threat to our pine forests. Due to the water cycle, it plays a role on erosion. Erosion tends to occur in two forms. The first one is the earth processes which move materials on the Earth's surface over long periods of time, such as weathering and gravity. Again, we have learned about erosions in previous lesson. Now, what affects erosion also is the human activity, which moves material on the Earth's surface over short periods of time, such as residential and commercial development, farming, that results in the alteration of the landscape and surrounding animal communities. Now, we learned that the roots of the trees are important because it helps with erosion. It keeps the soil compact and holds it together. Now, if we start to clear the land to build communities, then we start to kill the trees or cut the trees down, and eventually then the soil can get easily eroded. Soil erosion is often a result of forest clearing. When there are no trees covering the soil, rainfall lands directly on the ground, rather than dripping gradually through the tree branches and falling much more softly to the forest floor. Now, if I'm a raindrop, and I'm falling to earth, and I fall on top of trees, just as Ms. Roches mentioned this morning, she sheltered underneath a tree. Now, the leaves eventually will stop the water droplets from reaching the ground straight to the ground. It then slows down the process, and when it reaches to the ground, the pressure the force is not there that it causes erosion. Now, if we cut down trees, we won't have that canopy, and when it rains, it will rain harder. The same, what we can refer to is the experiment that Miss Elliott did with the spray bottle. When you sprayed, you notice that the water spread. And when you change the spray bottle to the powerful spray, notice that the ground or the gravel or the sand moved faster. Didn't you observe that? So that is how our pine forest helps. It helps by slowing down the water droplets from reaching the ground. Tree roots hold the soil in place. Trees prevent soil erosion. The root system helps prevent soil erosion, that is to protect the upper layer of the soil from drifting away by wind and water. Native and plantation forests protects our water supplies by acting as filters to keep streams and rivers clean and healthy. When we started the second activity, we mentioned that I told you to hold that thought when Glenn, if I'm not mistaken, said that the water was clean. So in other words, and I told you that we're going to mention it afterwards, if you notice, the forest helps by acting as a filter. It keeps the streams and rivers clean and healthy. When topsoil has eroded, it is much harder for new plants to grow, and the lack of stabilizing plant roots leads to more erosion. What is the effect of erosion? Sedimentation in the rivers. If you notice, the arrow is pointing to a picture. If you look at this stream, what can you see on the stream? Is it clean? No. What you think is in the water, Evelyn?
Dirt.
Dirt or soil from the runoff. Okay, do you think that stream will be healthy? No. Is it healthy for the fishes if there's fish in it? No. Okay, thank you. So the second one is the removal of topsoil from land areas. Causes much erosion using wind. If you notice, that's a hillside and the soil is tumbling down. So again, the effects of erosions on the environment are sedimentation of the river, removal of topsoil from land areas, and wind erosion. I want you to write one sentence here what you think about this. It says forests could be said to be the lungs of the world. Do you believe it is true or you don't believe it is true? I'll give you 1 minute. forests could be said to be lungs of the world. Do you agree or you disagree? Okay. Irma, you want to share your answer, please?
Forests could be said to be the lungs of the world. I agree because it gives us oxygen, food, and shelter for animals and humans.
Okay. Anybody has anything different? Yes. Okay, Edwin?
I agree with the statement because trees release oxygen and breathe in carbon dioxide, which keeps our environment steady and balanced. It works just as our lungs work for us.
Okay, very good. You had your hand up, Erwin?
I don't think a statement like that could get any better. Hence, I agree without them, most living organisms will disappear.
Okay, and Kyle, had your hand up?
I agree because it is a balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide.
It helps with the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. One more girl. Wants to be the brave one.
I agree that the forests are lungs of the world because it helps to produce oxygen that we need to survive.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, so two threats that we looked at today about our pine forests: fire and erosion. Okay, fire and erosion. So the erosion, the trees help by holding this topsoil or the soil together, avoiding erosions. And the different when we looked at the different effects, such as sedimentation, the removal of topsoil, and wind erosion. Okay, so we need to keep our pine forests as healthy as possible. With the poem being that it is limitless, we need to keep it that way, and we have to work hand in hand with the plants, as we said with the last statement, that it is the lungs of the world because, like you mentioned, we take out carbon dioxide and they give us back oxygen. Thank you very much.